about how, because it sounds like your proposal is to set it at a later date.
Well, I'm not reviewing now. So, I mean, how much time would you like today? Right, so, I think, why don't you continue, and then, and you will tell us, and then you can set a time to convene, figure out how to.
Okay, then folks that Cheryl, I have a point of order. It sounded like there was a direct proposal that required a direct response from Chancellor Block, and he didn't exactly respond to the proposal. He said he had limited time. So I'd like to hear Chancellor Block respond to the proposal to ask the police to leave the room. Is that cool?
I'm not certain what the police are doing. You have cameras here taking pictures, you've got plenty of documentation.
If they pepper spray?
This is a peaceful gathering.
The understanding that I had was following, maybe it was incorrect, which was translated to me is that if one regent came out to speak to you, we would leave peacefully. And actually there are 4 of us here. So that was, I think, the understanding of it. If that's not true, that's what we were told.
Clarify, Cheryl, or?
Yeah, no, that definitely wasn't an accurate representation of what we decided on here. So that was a communication, partly because we wanted to send one of our own people to speak to you, and they let us do that. So there was a sort of telephone problem.
So I am happy to meet with one of your own or several of your own. And I assume Regent Eddie Island will be happy to as well. And I'm happy to set up a time to do so. We really want to find a way to work together.
Okay, so back to staff. So we had Tim and then Cameron.
My mistake.
I just want to make sure that you guys know that we are referring to us as we. And so I'd like to make a motion that if you guys refer to us as we and not as you and us.
I would like to refer to all of us as us.
That'd be great.
Us. So I would like us to find a time.
Well, I just wanted to throw out there that we threw out a couple of ideas of things that we would like to discuss. Should the regents actually come, so I think this would be appropriate.
And so I propose that we set an agenda. Anybody have any? Does anybody have anything that they would like to propose? Yes.
The proposal on the agenda, Cheryl. The refund California pledge.
Calling for the resignation of Chancellor Katehi.
Truly democratic decision-making involving students, faculty, staff, and administrators.
We once again dodged the question about the police presence, so I'm moving towards a stance of safety and security that isn't sensationalist.
The governor's 2012-2013 budget sort of goes to what Cheryl was saying.
An organized march on Sacramento. You know, all of us working together to get the legislature to stop the budget cuts. And actually add.
Any other ideas? Proposal?
So should we, setting a date for and date and time. Any others in place? So I'll just read off the agenda items that were proposed and we can figure out an order to go over these. Refund California pledge, transparency of the governance and budget of the university, calling for the resignation of Chancellor democratic decision-making involving the students and faculty, the persistent police presence, the governor's 2012 budget, organized march on Sacramento, and date, time, and place for our next meeting.
I would like to make a proposal like this. I think we really want to be inclusive of this space and not try to, isolate anyone. And I really appreciate both of you for like kind of becoming like one of us, and we would like to become. So I don't know if we could like, what am I trying to say? Just like have more people, like just so that we can be all like truly in the mix with each other. I don't, it feels like us and I think it goes back to Cameron's point.
Switch seats with you.
Well, and I think maybe this also goes to an original question we had, is like, we don't actually have the maximum number of students and the public allowed in this space. They haven't been allowed to actually be in here, and we would like to know why that is. But
Yeah.
should we move back to reordering the agenda?
Oh,
Maybe that should be added to the agenda as, can we open this meeting up to those who are outside and who are prevented from being let in?
and sorry, like I didn't mean to make it like, I was just throwing that out there as a proposal, so any ideas are more than welcome. I thought, in the name of collectivity.
So,
So we had it and back to Jean and then I think, do you have your hand raised, sir? Or no?
I think I was scratching.
Jean would like to say is that, Chair Lansing agreed to come here because her understanding was that she'd be able to, acknowledge your presence here, listen briefly, and then go on with business that the Regents have to go on with. And she's now willing to come back, have a discussion with you. I don't think she can set a date today because I think she just looked at her schedule. She will get back with possible dates. I will be there, if other Regents can be
Point
there.
of order,
But
I don't think it's right for somebody to speak for somebody else who's in the meeting right now. Chair Lansing needs to speak for herself, she doesn't need you to speak for her.
So I, again, want very much for all of us to work together. I am happy to set a time. I don't have my appointment. So if you want, I can set a time. I can offer you many times this afternoon. I can go to my office after my next meeting, which is a continuation of health services. So I will do that. My suggestion is that you will be here, because that's who you are. I'd like to come to you. And my suggestion is we invite as many of the Regents that wish to join. That's fine. And the chancellors, and actually have another chancellor here, Chancellor Drake, as well. So you actually have 3 chancellors. I will get back to you if you tell me how, or through Jean. And please call me Sherry. I will be happy to get back to you today. And it will be before the end of the year, before you break for Christmas. I can promise you that. That'll help you. And we break for Christmas, what is the date exactly?
Next week's next week. So
We break next week?
December 9th.
next week is
December
Yes.
21st. Yeah, there's a time after the instruction ends next Friday, roughly. And then there are finals and things after that. So the break isn't until the 21st. So that's nebulous, is what I'm saying. There's instruction ends one day, the quarter ends a different day.
Well, I go out of town on Wednesday, and I do not come back until the 8th, I believe is the day. I have to look it up in my book. So I could meet with you in San Francisco, because that's where I'll be.
so Regents participating and telling us how you feel about it. But are there other proposals for different things to be brought to the top of the agenda?
And just to give the Regents, I guess, clarity, before you showed up, we were having numerous discussions with, I guess, student affairs, kind of middle people about letting students come in, because clearly we're not at capacity in terms of student. I mean, now with all the press, I don't know, but I think like there is room here, and still within, our fire codes and our safety, to bring other voices into this space.
So, I can speak for myself. I don't speak for myself as a person. I can speak for the whole body. Okay? Just as you said. So I can only say that I have no objection whatsoever to more students being in the room, and I actually would like you to stay and put your questions forward on a piece of paper, as I said. And so I have no objection to that whatsoever as an individual. I don't know what the fire capacity laws are. I don't know any of that, so I can't speak to that, but there is no reason why more of you can't be in a room unless there are no seats, and if it's peaceful, if people want to stand in the back, I have no objection whatsoever to that. It's a very healthy suggestion. And also during the business, because we actually, you have to do business, we have to do business, you can, baby, put your questions on a piece of paper, as we do, get them to somebody, write a letter, they distribute it, put them on a piece of paper, and those questions will be asked. My problem now is that there are, I know you have other obligations as well. When you say we're not responding, I'm happy to discuss any agenda you want, but I need to reschedule, we need to continue the dialogue and schedule a meeting because they can't have this next meeting without me, and there's 20 people that are waiting. And it's nothing that's an action item, it's a discussion on that service.
So we have staff and we have a hard block.
Would you like to present your hard block?
But I just don't accept that, you came here today for a Regents meeting in this room, so I don't accept that you have other things to do right now.
I have
because
a continuation of the Regents meeting.
you have to continue it in this room as we have continued the meeting.
Yes, I can, but they're not here.
There's no reason that you can't talk about student health services in this format. We're not opposed to that.
Okay.
But
So the proposal was, and we had a majority supporting that we put opening this meeting up as the top item of our agenda. And you expressed that you had no opposition to that, you supported that. So
I have no opposition, I want to be clear, to additional students. I'm speaking for myself, I'm not speaking for the Board of Students. I have no objection to additional people being in the meeting, assuming the fire laws and everything are kept. And chancellors, you can answer that question better than I can. And I have no objection to questions being brought forward by me during this discussion.
So because apparently people aren't being let in, so. So who would we speak to?
Who has the authority?
Who has the authority to say that we can let people in?
Chancellor block, did you just block?
Yes, so first thing we have to do is we have our region that has to go, so.
But you can continue to speak if you want to.
So let's, those folks leave, that's not.
before you leave, will you just say why you refuse to sign the refund pledge? This is the refund pledge. We have all signed
I
it.
actually have asked for a meeting, not to say his name right, Mr. C. I've asked for a meeting with a group of people who are supporting the refund pledge and ask some questions. Just some things I don't understand.
Will we be able to
Want
get
to
questions
ask
and
the
questions right here?
Come.
Well, I mean, you told us that we have to put our questions.
No, I'll put them, sure, I'll put them as soon as the meeting's done.
You're welcome to use this room until this room normally closes. I don't know the closing time, but you're welcome to use it until then. And,
Regent Island, is there a reason that you haven't signed the pledge?
I've chosen not to, and it's my prerogative not to.
Is there a
And
reason?
my reason is that it is my prerogative whether I sign a petition or not, and I've chosen not to.
You
Right?
have no reason.
No, that's my reason. You may not agree with it, but that's my reason.
So you don't support raising revenue?
No,
through
no,
refund
I didn't say that. I said I wasn't signing the petition. There are many things in that petition that I obviously, given my background as a liberal and a progressive, would agree with. I'm not a petition signer, and I don't intend to sign it.
Not a petition.
I just said I don't intend to sign it. That's it.
That,
We have to be behind you too.
Let's have you.
Oh. I was just wondering if you're leaving before discussing anything of substance, why you came. I'm confused. I mean, I know we took lots of good pictures here, but I mean, aside from that, what was the purpose of your coming here to meet with us?
Because our request to have a meeting wasn't
answered in any kind of timely manner. Our time wasn't respected in any way.
Well, there's obviously been a lack of communication, because when we were in the meeting, one of the gentlemen came up to me and said, the group is in a circle, they would like to meet with one region. If you will meet with them, they will disperse peacefully. And there will be no recrimination, nothing, they will disperse peacefully. I said, great, I'd love to meet with them and I'd like to continue the dialogue. No one at that time said the dialogue was going to be for 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it is. So there was a lack of communication. I don't think it was intentional. So 5 of us came instead of 1 of us. I hope you will accept that as good faith. And I hope that you will accept that we are prepared to schedule a meeting that is not a half hour, that is, a long meeting, sometime before the end of the year. Chancellor Block will be back to you, and that we will come to you.
So we have 2 more people on stack before we take that.
I'd like to propose that we do ask you to come back today, and that we allow, and as you said, if you could be here later after the other meeting, and that we let people in and we ask the police to leave. So Chancellor Block has not responded.
I'm going to leave the scheduling up to Chancellor Block. I'm going to give him the dates. I'm going to give you the dates. Then Regent Island will give you the dates, and we will continue the dialogue.
Can we come with you into the supposedly public meeting?
Wait, hold on, we have 2 more people on stack. If you could be gracious and listen to them.
Sharon.
I'm going to the W Hotel right now for a meeting on, with health services and a presentation on the San Diego campus. You're welcome.
Arturo?
Thank you.
Does anyone want to join them?
So,
Can we have a representative?
If people want to join, no, I want to express my disappointment in how, the communication was just, there was no communication. The people that were sent as messengers did not clarify they were just messengers. That only came until afterwards. And so when we had asked to, have a negotiation for this to happen, we weren't even allowed that. So we are, it literally, the power dynamic is you are here and we are here. Us being down here and the regions being here. So I just want to express my, disappointment and disappointment in the hasty, exit of the regions. Once again, being stood up.
So we have sound and here.
Okay, well, just to add on to what you said, when we came for a discussion, it just seems like this is, no offense, there was no discussion. This seems more like it was a PR move to say that we talked to them and they didn't agree with us, so we left. And that's not a real discussion. That's not a real democratic move. You have to have faith that we understand where we're coming from. We are the students. We live this. We are being taught all of these things. And you have to trust that we are intelligent enough to be able to have a real discussion about how to maybe restructure, how to do these things. We've been holding democratic assemblies for months now, and we have been very successful. We have a collective. We know what it feels like to all be included in a discussion. And we don't want to have people who feel like because of their privilege, their background, or their time is more valuable. We're paying here too. Our time is valuable also being in here. That's why we're here. And I don't appreciate having any of my friends' voices being taken down a notch because all of a sudden someone else has run out of time. I'm all for open discussion. Everybody's valuable here.
So I just want to.
Just to be clear, so we keep this public, I think that's part of the spirit here, is that, we respect your time, and you make decisions on how you spend your time. We have other obligations, you have to be respectful of our time. I think that's the idea here, is to be respectful of one another.
So can we get the students
This-
and others?
Ms. Lansing has been, Sherry has been remarkably generous in trying to find another time. She's very busy to come down here and listen to students. I think that is an important step. I think it will be valuable. And I think you've accomplished, if you wanted to accomplish a discussion with Ms. Lansing, she's open to a discussion. She's not open to discussion right at this moment because she had to leave.
But what I'm asking is, I mean, we already reached consensus and approval about more of the public being allowed here in this space, but that hasn't
So
happened.
the limits on, and we'll have to get that organized, how we can do that. There's the limits on the number of people in the space. The space can be used while the building's open. When the building closes, you understand that?
Right, well, we've heard that, but the public has not been allowed in.
Right
So,
now.
Yeah, right now.
So we can let the public in, but someone has to control the number of people, so give the folks here a few minutes to develop a mechanism for letting the appropriate number of people in. And then you can continue with your discussions, you can use the room until I said the room closes.
Is the Regents meeting continuing, or has it been?
Regents meeting is finished. It's a short meeting, as you know, it's a relatively few agenda items.
And was the budget passed?
Expenditures.
Expenditures.
Right. That happens with the.
To request to extend.
People still in staff.
Well, it seems like there was the idea, I mean, is there a point person that we can talk to about letting more people in, right? 'Cause it seems like we are okay with it.
One thing we need assurances of is that you will leave when the building closes at 6 o'clock. Because to let people in, to have a battle over leaving the building is not fair to any of us. So this has to go both ways. I mean, we're willing to allow this room to reach its capacity, but we have to have our assurance that at 6 o'clock when the building closes, the building closes.
I mean, I have a proposal that we will leave once the building closes, and obviously this is something we can vote on in a second, if the police are told to leave. If we pose no threat to anyone here, physical threat at all. So obviously this is something we can discuss.
Wait, actually, because we had other people on staff who still want to go. So we had more on staff.
But it seems like we came to an agreement about this proposal that yes, we will leave when the building closes, if and only if the police leaves. That was the consensus?
It's a simple question, simple questions always incomplete.
Well, we want to be very accurate about our answer about what it means to leave, and we should be able to. Yeah, we're not going to be.
We get the, so we also would like a really accurate answer about what it means for the police to leave, right? So not leave and sit in front of the door and videotape our faces, or be outside and riot here, or, I mean, this man over here has been videotaping us the whole time, right? This man right in the corner, let's wave to the camera, hi. Okay, so we totally respect you wanting a clear answer about what it means to leave. We would also like a very, very clear understanding about what it means for the police to leave. Okay, so no police on the premises.
No police in this room.
Here, in this room,
Surrounding
right
us,
here,
in
surrounding us,
barricades.
right, making us feel like we're criminals,
You will,
but we're not.
you will not feel uncomfortable. Okay?
I propose that we ask for the removal of the barricades.
Yes.
Yeah, can we get a temperature check on that?
We're negotiating with the
I don't care as long
chancellors
as
right now.
people are allowed to
And
allow
invite
people
everyone
through.
on the outside to come in.
As long as they're not used to their.
So we have staff, so who's still on staff, so.
I'm not sure how many there are left, but there were like 300
I know
a little while ago.
Yeah, I've been speaking a lot, we haven't heard from you.
No, I would really like to talk about, some of these finance
Plus, like,
and budget items, and I unfortunately, I actually have to leave after give a speech in Orange County, so I don't know how we move that on the agenda.
Yeah, we just had we had already rearranged the room so that we put all the chairs in a
So,
circle, and then Chair Lansing, Chair Island, and Regents, Lansing and Island came and sat in
Pretty soon.
Okay, so that's why you want. And then the 3 chancellors. We tried to ask them about the
Refund
reason
California
why they
pledge
asked them
was,
to open
sorry,
the building
just to
more
remind people, us
students.
facilitator,
And
the
they just
Refund
kept talking
California pledge
about
was the next
scheduling
item on our
another
agenda.
meeting to do.
I think it would make a lot of sense.
And we would point of order them or hard block them.
Yeah.
And then when they
Okay,
got
so
up
we have
to leave, we
Anthony.
called them on their PR stunt.
So I was just, sorry, because I've been trying to get in, but, so before that, which I think is a great idea to talk about that right now, for the immediate time though, can like a couple of us go and just escort like our fellow students in? Cause I think we have the okay, and I think we need to take action because it seems like we
So have
reached
you
an
guys, are you
agreement,
guys
now
still
we
meeting, or
just
what's
gotta,
going on?
right? So we can have this conversation.
Okay.
And I would volunteer myself to go bring some folks in.
Oh, nice.
Maybe if we count. Temperature check?
No, I think that's a good idea. Bring more people in?
Yeah, bring more people in.
Would you be willing to go with Anthony to escort some of our students into the space?
Yes?
Oh, wait a second.
I'm sorry, the chancellor, I'll just interrupt, I know you guys don't like that, but the chancellor has briefings, daily briefings.
And get up to
And
big
hour-long
magazine.
briefing that he has had scheduled, he has it once a quarter, and this has been scheduled for several months, so we don't want to disappoint the student newspaper, and they go, as you know, they go on hiatus.
With all due respect, it's only gonna take like 3-5 minutes, and I mean, we were kept waiting for a good half an hour. I think
We all get to answer her questions, and she
So, as I said, I'm going through the briefing. You can let people into the room. We have to respect the capacity of the room. The building closes at 5:30, but we'll extend that to 6 o'clock, so you have enough time for your discussions. Okay?
I will be back.
Okay, so for staff, we have Michael, and then we have Tim, and then who else? Yeah, you're on
I'll be very quick. So I also have to leave. I chair a meeting, and it's a required meeting once a month. It's in our counties I need to go to in a minute. What I was going to suggest is that when you have people like Nathan, who really have the information that you need to be able to make a good decision, that you really take advantage of the opportunity to speak with them and listen carefully. And I'll say I know Regents Meeting very well. I've been in every Regents meeting now for 12 years, but worked with them for a long time. When you spend this special time to come and actually talk to you about these issues, we can really exchange things. I think that would be quite a rich and valuable discussion. So I just ask you to take advantage of that opportunity. And so I appreciate that. We need a couple of you to take a look.
I love this speech, by the way.
Okay, can anyone else take this?
Oh, yeah. That reminds me that, I forget his name, but the guy who does the blog.
We all left our stuff outside because we were scared.
I'll make it all the time.
Thank you.
I can.
All right, you guys, this is still like our days. So next on staff,
I just wanted to say thanks for letting me join. I spent a couple hours, almost 3 hours at Occupy UCR last week, and our students are interested in chatting with me back on the Riverside campus. So you'll understand that I'm going to wait to go visit the students on the sister campus. But, I encourage the conversation. I echo Michael's point about Nathan. I think this is my third time at the University of California. Once as a student in Berkeley, back when many of you weren't here yet, in the 70s. Been on the faculty of Berkeley for many years, and now I'm back to the Riverside campus. And the way in which we're financed is complicated. And I know it gets criticized for not being transparent. You have the gurus here who can help explain the various ways in which we get resources and what the core issues are. So I would just echo my comments. And I wish you well in your discussions today, and I know I'll see you again. Thank you for inviting me in. I'm off my campus. Thank you.
Those police are pretty good about putting barricades back up now that they're leaving.
Yeah, I do have to go down to Orange County. How long does it take to drive there? Okay.
Might take you about an hour. After here, it's about an hour.
the next on staff, we've been waiting.
how to read it, or like, you know, the amount that should be, and like, sort of, but I don't really know.
So I guess before you talk about finances, some of the things that weren't mentioned as much during public comment were not how the legislature is funding public education, but how we're using the resources we have. So a lot of people have a problem with floating student fees and tuition, you know, against construction bonds, building a hotel here on campus, and hiking fees in order to do that. At the same time, one of the regions is actually a CEO of a private educational company, and that poses a serious conflict of interest. As we raise fees here, as we really get a lot of students here on massive student debt and raise tuition, it drives a race to the bottom so that students are driven to the for-profit colleges that really have very low value. So those are a couple of things I want to speak to for resources bill and one region besides the resources having a conflict.
Can I address it, or do we have to go to staff?
I have something to add to that comment, if that's okay. Just because at the trustees meeting, CSB trustees meeting, there was definitely a rhetoric of students as, just as economic rhetoric, supply and demand. And there was even this argument that the issue about access to education is not about the demand side. So it's not about if we raise tuition, they were making the argument that anybody who needs financial aid should be able to get financial aid. But I think tied with this, with this conflation of public and private interests, is that when tuition, the standard of the tuition is raised so high, then public education is no longer has this competitive advantage, right? It's not cheaper for students to come here. So it allows private universities also to raise their tuition because they don't have any competition. So I think for me that is a huge concern. Like,
well, that's actually. Can I respond? Let me first respond to, what was your name again? Kyle's first point. We do not use student fees or tuition to pay any debt service on projects. We do have a general revenue pledge of all revenues in the university, and that enables us to get a really good bond rating. We're AA+, so we actually borrow at about 1% less than the state does. And we pledge everything. We pledge everything from tuition and fees to well, we can't pledge the state, but to indirect cost recovery, to every revenue. So we don't use any of those to pay the. So it's as if you were buying a house and your parents, you use them as a co-signer, but you didn't get the money from them to pay for it. And that's been a real advantage for us because we've been able to borrow at lower rates and build more projects. The second point, I don't know the specifics, so I don't want to address it about private education, though I do, it does relate to KT's point. One of the things that we have done really well, and I won't apologize for this at all, is that even as tuition has gone up, we have protected lower income Californians. We're actually at a higher percentage of Pell Grant recipients than ever before. There are 39% of our undergraduates are Pell Grant recipients. And that's because we've made a really strong commitment to financial aid. But what's happened in recent years is what it's really started to do is it started to impact the middle class. And people, we look at these statistics all the time. The families that are earning most in California are those with incomes between $90,000 and $120,000 because they don't qualify for federal aid, they don't qualify for state aid, they don't have very much institutional aid, yet they're paying the full tuition plus the return to aid. So their tuition in essence is a third higher because of what we do for financial aid. And so one of the things the President's asked me to do is look at
new financing proposals to try to address that and extend it further into the middle class. Because you're right, I mean, if you got into UCLA, and you got into Stanford and Harvard, and your family made $150,000, you're better off less going there because they had more financial aid at that level. Kyle.
So I just want to quickly respond. You analogize to co-signing for a house. I see the analogy as buying more and more houses and selling them for profit and not having any room for students to be in those houses. And so I guess specifically what that means is, let's prioritize lowering student fees. It's a lot more effective as far as providing a forcible education, as far as opposed to providing more Pell Grants, which just keeps tuition high and maybe provides some aid for low-income students, but still really drives a race to the bottom, so that people who are left out, and increasingly people are left out, low-income people, people of color are being left out, they're being pushed to lower quality schools and ultimately to for-profit schools that at least one region has an interest in them being at. He's making money off of our fees being high and driving a race to the educational
And then, speaking to this analogy to houses and mortgaging houses, I mean, we just had a huge housing crisis, right? Why would we want to align the way that we finance our education to the way that, like this failed way that we do?
Well, I mean, honestly, that was something the university did not do well at all, because they did not, they did borrow, and they borrowed very ineffectively. And actually, borrowing at lower rates and pushing it out longer is actually to the betterment of the university as a whole. And that's, frankly, what the schools like Harvard and Stanford and Princeton have done extremely well. And we have been able to, we've been able to realize tens of millions of dollars in savings, operational savings, that we can put back into our campuses.
I just think it's all about education.
No, you're right. I mean, that is the trade-off. But the real issue there, has been a decades-long disinvestment from the state. And one of the things that, where did Cheryl go? But the one issue I had, because I've seen the refund pledge, and I'm generally for all the items, but I don't think the governor is actually working its own revenue issue. I don't think that's a secret. And we're going to be a big part of it. We're talking to them about it, and I think they are polling and seeing what is most effective. I don't think he's going to get a single Republican vote to get it through the legislature, so I think it's going to have to go to the people. And I think that we should all get behind what that revenue initiative is, because I think that will provide, what we need more than anything is we need steady and reliable funding for university development. We don't need blockbuster growth, we just need to have growth that we can count on, so we're not whipsawed in this, this yearly budget cycle.
We just got the thumbs up.
As far as the proposal, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like almost the people thinking about it, are thinking about it, like they're kind of hiding behind like what they should say, but I want to know what you think about it, like as a person.
As a person, I'm completely for it. I think the reform of Prop 13, I think Prop 13 has done more damage to this state than anything else. I graduated from high school in 1981, and it was passed in 1978, and you started to see the deterioration of California. And what it's led to is not only a defunding of public services, it's also led to it being concentrated in Sacramento in decision making. And it's also led to extreme inequities. So my in-laws live in Santa Barbara. They probably pay a tenth in property tax that their next door neighbor pays because they bought, in 1974. And yet they get, the police respond at just the same time the fire respond. But schools have gone. I've got 6 kids, and public schools are abysmal. They're going, they're having to go out for private fundraising. And I just don't think that is what made California great. My problem with Prop 13 is I think if you do it whole, including residential, it doesn't stand a chance of passing. I think that doing a split roll where you roll back the commercial property tax and did, an equalization on commercial, but left residential, that may pass. But I think if you just said, let's repeal Prop 13, and I think the polling on that, it would lose, even in the state. Even in 2012, it should be a good time for it. And I think that's what we're seeing from Governor Brown, is that he's going to go out with a measure that, probably can win. And I think the measures that are probably more likely are, broadening the sales tax. We actually live in a state where most of our sales are in services and lawyers, accountants, things like that. We don't tax those at all. All we do is we tax food products in a very narrow thing, which is very regressive. And so I think if you broaden the sales tax and you can even probably lower the rates and raise more revenue. But what we need is more steady funding of our government. And right now, over 50% of Sacramento's revenues come from personal income tax, which are really, really volatile. And because we've basically taken out property tax and sales taxes on such a narrow base. And so we need to broaden those taxes, give steady funding for, not only for us, but also for K-12 and other primary services.
Nathan, there's a sandwich for you on the wall.
Oh, I already had some. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I'm not calling.
So next week, it was myself and the
Sorry, can I just make a quick, on the food, a lot of people went through a lot of trouble trying to get food into this building, and one of the things that we came to the agreement on was that we're all going to be mindful and just throw away our trash, leave no crumbs, nothing. So that way we can have sustenance here, because a lot of folks have been here since way longer.
I'm here right now.
If any, I can come around and clear everybody's stuff after everyone's done.
Okay. So I think I would like to say to you is, and what we've all said.
I think the deal was, at this point, we would actually leave when the building closes. We got an agreement from Chair Lansing that she would schedule meetings, and we also got the cost to the businesses as well. And in exchange, we said we would leave when the building closes at 6 p.m.
At UCLA, and I will be the UC law.
So we made some
So I've seen the UC system and the public
we
education.
haven't actually scheduled yet
Very
because she
respected.
had to look at her schedule
And it
because
is
she's Chair
shameful to
Lansing.
know that there's
So
custodians
I think it's going to be
several
between December
custodians
8th
in
and
that
December
medical center
17th or so.
that clean Dr. Feinberg's office space. And
Yeah,
they
she's the
don't
chair
have
of
medical
Regents. She's also like a former
insurance. They have to
executive
rely
of Paramount
on
Pictures, the
food
CEO.
Why don't they have
She's pretty.
They don't have medical insurance because of a series of reasons that they usually give as to why they can't automatically offer.
Well, I'd like to meet them because our medical insurance is one of the best in the whole
Well,
world.
there are actually
I'm sure
sponsors here, and
I'm
also
speaking from experience.
And we also have A-Bank, they pay much
there's
less.
still dialogue.
So I'm speaking from my experience.
Even though that.
But then also, I mean, if you look
In
at
addition to
say,
that, if you can let me finish, I would appreciate it. In addition to that, I think it is shameful that we as students we have to keep paying more and more. The brunt of workers have their wages slashed and have to have layoffs because there's no money, but there's tons of money to bring in all these talks and Brian here, to have enough money for pepper spraying all of these students, to have enough money for a supposed independent investigation and consulting company to carry it out. And it is very much shameful for all of us. And this is why we're putting out, okay, the Refund California statement, we think it's very, very important for all of us. But we also think it's very important that you give us and you understand that we are trying to partake in a democracy. We're not trying to partake in a dictatorship where we're trying to tell you what to do or to be violent. None of us are trying to do that today. So we appreciate the respect that you've offered us to us, but we would hope that you would encourage all of your colleagues to look at that letter and that you would sign the letter to understand what it meant and understand all the actions today, not just a bunch of rowdy protesters, but what does it concretely mean? It means that the tides are changing and that you say the answer is increasing funding, the answer is addressing the inequality that several of the regions have created in this society. So next on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to you said that there's not a lot of popular support for Proposition 13, for repealing Proposition 13. I think that's generally true, but there is a lot of support for taxes to increase public education
That's true,
funding. And so one of the things that the Refund Coalition has actually proposed is that those new tax revenues would be tied or earmarked for specific projects, in this case, higher public education. So it's not exactly accurate to say that people don't support repealing Proposition 13, as it is accurate to say they wouldn't support repealing Proposition 13 if it's not tied to specific state projects. And so I think that we actually could build support to repeal it if it were tied to funding K-12 and higher public education. So that's something that's trying to point out.
So we had.
No, I was pointing to Seth.
I mean, it's not like a big question mark that's been looming over me constantly about this and hearing all these talks about how, you know, we need to like look to the state to get funded for this, and there's just not enough money to get from all these different sources. But then when the money comes in, I mean, please, like we said before, there was an audit last year where $1 billion went unaccountable for, and then when the state X itemized it, UC had no response to that, and that's just what something that or.
Yeah, I mean, that's
fine.
not,
Please, whatever you want to say.
I was very involved in that audit. That's not true at all. And what they criticized was that we had about $1 billion under, what was called miscellaneous. And I agree that is a valid criticism. But it's not, believe me, we do not have $1 billion floating around unaccounted for. I mean, we are, probably one of the most comprehensively scrutinized and overseen institutions, given all of our different. I mean, it's not the public state of California, but we get $5 billion from contracts and grants, and so NIH and NSF and all those we have to do audits for. Our medical centers are $9 billion, and so we have all of the oversight of health and human services. In a $22 billion enterprise, sure there may be a couple of improprieties, but I'm actually very, very proud of how strong our books are.
So if I can just ask, so what constitutes miscellaneous? Like what is spent on something that's miscellaneous?
Actually,
it doesn't need to be spent on if it's miscellaneous.
No, I can get you. I mean, they're all very dumb. The list was. I actually think, Steve, we have that list handy that I can email them because we did it as a follow-up to the thing, and it was under a certain reporting threshold. And I can't remember what the threshold was, but if I get one.
Oh, hi, Alan, this is Kyle. I just wanted to call and give you an update. I didn't know if you had a chance to hear what happened in the meeting.
For those who just came, my name is Nathan, and I'm Vice President of Business Operations at the Office of the President. I was at the Berkeley campus actually 4 years before coming
during that meeting, the chair of Lansing and the chair of the Regents agreed to set a meeting with us. And we also negotiated opening up the meeting to the public and removing police from the premises.
I mean, I've heard the argument time and time again that we should go to the state for funding because you guys can't, you guys can't control how much funding you get from the state. And I heard you just say something sort of.
Yeah, we got them to leave.
Well, you guys
vacated the premises.
Signing the pledge for repealing Prop 13 because you don't really have enough people to pass. And I feel like you guys are passing the buck in responsibility. Any representative democracy, which I'm not for, but we're in a representative state that isn't even democratically elected. I think that the people need to frankly have enough courage and balls to stand up for what's right. CSU
the division's actually
at
not for those
dissenting voices
meetings, and they're scattered around
sure,
Orange County.
need to come up with more money.
But they did meet with us for
we do
close
in the state,
to
it's
an
easy,
hour.
we have California slashing budgets all the time.
And
We're
agreed
that
to meet with us again.
if you don't stand up and make a stand,
Very
sure,
soon, she said too, before the
they
Christmas
didn't let you tax
break.
the
So it was a real
tuition on the
concession.
backs
It
of
was an
students,
ambiguous
like a regressive
element
taxation
eventually.
without any representation. I think it's important for you guys to stand up for things, even if you think it's a sort of quixotic quest that probably won't pass. It's important to make your statement heard, start affecting change, because a lot of people, a lot of newspapers, a lot of different media sources look to you guys for opinions, look to you guys for informed stances. And so I think it's important to say not what you think is realistic, because in the realistic setting everything sucks. But to say what we actually need and what we actually want. And even if we get less than that, we'll get more than if we're saying oh, well, we expect pennies from the state, so let's just ask for pennies.
Seth, can someone up? I completely agree with you, and I think that in general we have been a little bit not in recent years, but in time past we've been a little bit passive about making that statement, and because oftentimes what happens is that
then we're pitted against Health and Human Services, where it's someone's in-home health care, or, aid for the blind. And so you feel a little bit embarrassed, like saying, oh, we need more money in those situations. But the truth is, the state is just underfunding everything. And we need to be stronger about getting more revenues into the system. And I do think that, every legislator will say they're for higher education, but they also know, and the Democrats will do just as much as the Republicans, they know at the end of the day is that we hit this historically low tuition and fees, and so that they could, pass it on to CSU and UC, and they would raise it. Well, we're past that point. I mean, this year, there's actually more in student tuition and fees than there is in state appropriations, and that's wrong. I mean, there is some private benefit to you going to a school, but there's also tremendous public good from having a great public university that has 200,000 plus students. And I think we're at the tipping point where if we go much further, then we lose that quality. And we can still do the things we can to preserve access, but then you start to lose, what does it mean to be a public university? And so and that's one of the things I've been telling the state is that you can't, we have to be equal partners now going into this, because you can't keep doing this to the students.
But it's, do I have a chance for? But it's not just about saying we need this, but making substantive action, because you guys are the only ones that can make action. So the CSU dissenting trustees, which I really resonated with, were for voting against raising fees, even knowing that there would probably be some sort of budget pitfall if the state didn't back it. It's forcing the state's hand, forcing them to say, all right, these colleges will go into crisis unless we do something, and attach an emergency word to the start of any education bill. And I think it would probably pass if you're still interested in just what will pass instead of what is a human right and what we should do. So I think
I guess I would disagree with that as a tactic, because I do think what matters to the legislators is access for California students. And so if we said, boy, if you're going to cut us, we won't raise tuition, but we're going to take 20,000 more students from out of state, that would resonate with them. And we haven't done that to date. But that's the kind of thing where they all of a sudden, then they had kids in their districts who weren't able to go to UCLA or couldn't go to UC Santa Barbara. I think that would have meaningful impact. I agree with you. And CSU actually did that one year where they cut enrollment a lot, and it did seem to have some impact. But I think those are the only things that really matter to the legislators.
Okay. Yeah, just maybe help me clarify when you're saying we should go out and do all this. I sort of want to clarify who we is, because we to me at this point is a little ambiguous. And I would like to be a little more explicit and transparent. And we, who are you saying? Who are you a part of? Are you saying the regents, or are you saying who, legislators? I want to clarify.
When I spend a lot of time in Sacramento, and I find that the groups that actually resonate the most are students and alumni, even more than faculty. The faculty are really impressive, and they go up and they have Nobel Prizes, but the legislators can't really relate to what they're doing, and they get sort of caught off guard on their research. When students go and they talk about their own personal experience, and when they talk about that they weren't able to graduate in time because they couldn't get enough classes, because of cuts, or when they talk about having to take on, one speaker this morning talked about having 4 jobs. I mean, that is the kind of thing that does resonate with legislators. When I go, it has some impact, but it's much more abstract and esoteric. Whereas if the students go, especially students from the district, that really does matter a lot to them. I would say the other argument that we have started to use, and actually we're expanding this, we did just a real quick study about how much economic impact the University of California has on the state, and it's phenomenal. Because we bring in, the state puts in right now $2.35 billion. And for every dollar they put in, one of the students brought up this morning, we generate $13 of economic output. And a lot of that is because we bring in about 45% of our money from out of the state. Whether it's in federal research dollars or whether it's in Medicare or Medicaid dollars for our medical centers. So we're this huge economic engine. In fact, when they cut us, it's actually counterproductive to them because it actually cuts their tax revenues. And so that's one of the things that when I say I don't want to really pit ourselves against Health and Human Services, if we can say it's actually an investment to put money into the University of California, it's not an appropriation, that differentiates us from corrections. You put money in the prison system, it's gone. You put money in the University of California and you generate, 14, 15, 20 times the return from that. And, that does, because then, a legislator will start saying, oh yeah, I know so-and-so who went to Merced and started the solar company in Merced and stayed there. And those are kinds of things that actually do resonate. So,
Yeah, I guess, and I might just be a little ignorant of the way things work, but to me it sounds like school right now, going to public university or operating in or overseeing it is a really good business for the state. And I just don't really understand why or how our public education became a business and not so much like focused on people and students who have to suffer through a lot of tuition hikes. And I'm speaking for the collective because, as you mentioned earlier, we the UC has done a great job at Pell Grants, which I'm a recipient of because my family income is so low. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. But my fellow students who are sort of on the sort of, line, I guess, the sense of of low income and middle income, and so therefore their family has to pay and they have to take out mortgages and and then they graduate with incredible amounts of debt, which this is a fact, and I just I understand that there's a lot of money involved and there's a lot of business aspects involved, but at the end of the at the very end of the day, it's about people. And I think that's what the Occupy movement around the schools has been trying to say.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. That is one reason I came to the University of California, is because I valued my own education so much, and I wanted to, preserve public education. And there are so many things in the university that don't lend themselves to business thinking and should be put through that that kind of model. That being said, there are a lot of things that we don't do that well, where you can actually save money and put it back into the academic enterprise. So, one example, right now we have 11 different payroll systems around all of our campuses. And that, first of all, they don't run very well. They're, at the end of the month, we're always worried that one's going to break down and some paychecks are not going to get out. And second, it's really expensive to have that, that disparate a system. And so now we're looking at doing one payroll system for the whole UC, which will be, a higher service quality, but also will save, I think when it's fully implemented, it'll be $150 million a year that will then can go back into the academic enterprise. So I agree, we shouldn't judge an English department based on its return, and that's one of the problems we run into in Sacramento, is that they're always like, well, how many hours are they teaching, and what are they, and it's like, no, that's not the way to think about it. But there are things that we can do better, more effectively in order to keep money in what, really are our core mission of teaching and learning and research. I just want to cover one other thing, though. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's okay.
Loans is something we have to watch really, really closely, because UC has a very, very low debt rate right now in terms of our graduating students. We're about $10,000 less than the national average. So an average UC student comes out with about $15,000 of debt. But I think that has been masked because I think a lot of Californians, families, use home equity to help finance. They had to build up in their house, and so they took out home equity loans. And I think in the coming years, we're going to have to watch that really closely to make sure that doesn't rise dramatically.
Okay, were you going to respond directly to that, or were you going to add yourself to staff?
I was trying to have myself to staff.
No, not I'm sorry, Randy?
Oh,
Yes.
I was just going to add myself to them.
Okay, cool. So Jason?
Okay, so yeah, I've got three things, 3 different points. So point one, there's a certain political theater that the management of any public education system wants students to engage in, and it's what you outlined. And I've seen it for a while, and there's sort of 2 points about that in the subpoint. But it's basically that, What's really effective is that students go and they say, here's my personal story, and here's why public education is really important to me. And that's what students have been doing for at least a decade really effectively. There's not a single legislature that doesn't know that students love their education and want it. And in fact, the general population is overwhelmingly in favor of increased funding to public education. So that's been done. That theater has been done well. We've won on that. We can move forward. The public would favor massive increases to public education. But really, this whole thing where, basically students' political agency consists of joining on to an administrative lobbying campaign, and where our role is basically to be these performers that come out and say, in my case, it would be, I'm a first-generation college student, for 4 generations. My family were oil workers. I'm the first one in my neighborhood. I'm the only one in my neighborhood of my peers that has a BA, let alone is in grad school. I come from a broken high school. All this, we've done that. But by doing that, again, our political agency is reduced to the political imperatives of a political strategy and a paradigm that's controlled by management, when really students should be in charge of these campuses along with faculty, right? So I think there's sort of a fundamental disagreement, at least with me, about kind of who is calling the shots in the political strategy. Second, on the question of going to the legislature, I mean, sure, right? But we live in a complex society made up of multiple overlapping and interacting bureaucracies. And there's actually not a single decision-making body or person that people can go to and make an appeal, let alone the legislature. But presumably, we have these 19 regents, only one of which has a background in education, that come from the corporate world, precisely because they are embedded in corporate power networks of elites that have a lot more influence over the legislature than students do. And students have been extremely active. We have very effective and vibrant student governments across the UC system that do engage in traditional politics. And the reason that the legislature hasn't come around isn't because they've been ineffective or haven't been doing it the right way. It's because this strategy is fundamentally flawed on its own. It's not going to work. But you know who has a lot more pull is Monica Lozano and all her banker friends, right? And when the regents decide not to compartmentalize their identities and just come and be, in this space I'm a regent, but it's unconnected to everything else I do, it defeats the purpose of them being there. And I want to make a side point about that. Why don't they say, this UC system is in crisis, our ability to management is in question, and we need our corporate friends to come in and make interventions in the legislature, because guess what? Monica Lozano's friends have a lot more pull than even 1,000 students, even 10,000 students on the steps of Sacramento. Why don't they do that? Because there's a fundamental ideological disagreement between Monica Lozano's friends and the people of California. There's a fundamental disagreement about whether or not public services ought to exist in the form they've existed in the country, or whether or not they should be privatized and subject increasingly to the logic of markets, right? And at some point, these regents are going to have to decide which side they're on, right? And this movement is about forcing that decision. And if they're not prepared to fully act as the stewards of public education that they should be, then they should just go back to the corporate world, and we should just get some people on here that are, because they're not doing their job. Third is just a question of just a point about process, and I'm sorry I came in late and I don't know the process isn't here. But if we're keeping stack, there is this sort of back and forth, and you've been very responsive, and thank you. But the way this discussion is structured is somewhat hierarchical, in that we just are doing this respond back and forth thing instead of.
What would you prefer?
Does everyone get some stack?
Would you like to discuss what would you discuss?
I'm not, okay, here, let me rephrase. I'm not making a proposal because, like I said, I came in late, but I'm just wondering if the group made a decision to forego a egalitarian discussion or even our friend here has to get on stack like everyone else.
I think actually we had been respecting the stack process, and it was, I'm not sure, it was my impression that we hadn't had people necessarily on stack, and that's why it had turned into more guideline format.
And that was my fault.
Yeah.
Also, I think part of it is that, I mean, this, like, we are, I mean, the conversation is addressing something that we can, like, know more about than most of us.
I do have to do a time check. I really apologize.
Okay,
I probably should be here about 10 minutes. 2:30?
There's a clock behind you. Okay. Is this a question, or are you going to?
I just wanted to get on the staff.
Okay. What's your name?
I'm Kyle. So,
Me?
No, no.
Oh.
I don't know anyone's name. I don't know.
T-shirts for me.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I agree with everything you just said. I'm going to put it much less elegantly. Giving a personal experience. So, I recall when all the Cal States were many California students, because I got rejected from every school I applied to out of high school. So I ended up going to a different school, coming back, going to junior college. And I remember my friends saying, oh, I'm going to apply to Cal State. Oh, they're not accepting people. And I feel like the whole thing is just this, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of holding the state, like, almost at gunpoint saying, okay, fine, we'll get out-of-state people and we'll get money out of it. We were all prepared to get arrested today.
Yeah.
And, like, we were at the perimeter holding hands, like, cops, like, and we kicked them out.
Yeah.
We got them kicked out.
Peaceful protesters, higher numbers of cops with more weapons.
and then they came back and some of them were thin on fingers in the air.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I saw a few things.
Did we get some pictures of that?
Sorry.
Just want to say, kind of reiterate what everyone's saying, like, it's leaving on our terms, we are calling the shots in terms of, do people just want to stay here? If we're not going to have a G or something, then we're just hanging out. And then we become like that. Oh, isn't that what Occupy people do? Are they just hanging out? You know, like, we're not like doing something, then I feel like we can go. And we'll come back tonight someplace else. But we decide we're going to go.
I just think that like doing exactly.
No, I gotta say, like, so some of us perhaps we were thinking maybe we were going to be arrested, whatever would happen. But yeah, it's kind of mentioning that idea that what we did say was really powerful and like very like militant, and it's different in the way of like getting arrested and getting pepper sprayed. Like what we did was like really powerful and awesome in our unity and our sticking together and our challenging the region and like not letting them co-opt us when they tried to like break out our circle. I'm very proud of them. Yeah, group hug code after.
Nobody got hurt.
I just wanted to respond because I think that sometimes like doing nothing is a very active form of resistance. So I think that I just want to throw that out there. So if people wanted to do nothing here, I think that that would still be politically valuable. But yeah, I personally want to go with it.
Oh, I just think that as long as we prove that democracy actually works, you know, like democracy is powerful. You don't have to have somebody on top telling you from above what to do, you know, all the way down, and that we're all come from inside out together. And like, I think it's really amazing because I've always felt so alone here. And so it's just like to find this is like amazing. It's like gold.
So I think there was a proposal to leave this. Yeah.
Let's vote on this.
Yeah. Group hug, temperature check. Elliot's not going to do it. So are we proposing that we all leave the space together at once?
Yes. I have a question. Where are you guys meeting next?
6 p.m. tonight by Broom Plaza was what we had decided on in our last chat.
People's Plaza.
Which is by the Broom there. Where the tents are.
Oh.
6, 7, or 6?
Oh, I thought we had said 6.
6, but I don't know. If you
feel like meeting at 6 still?
Well, we can't change it, like, the policy is we decided in the GA because, like, those people have, we don't have a way to, like, get in contact with them and get their vote on it, so.
I mean, we moved it.
Can I just say, putting it on the Facebook, I know that the Facebook isn't anonymous for, you know, not that we're trying to be anonymous, but we're trying not to be able to pinpoint down in case whatever. Putting it on the Facebook is a very, very good thing, because I know there's like 500 members to the Facebook page, and a lot of us look at that to keep up with what's happening. So in case we aren't able to attend one GA, you can pick up on the next GA, so just to put it on the Facebook. I don't know whoever's in charge, or I can do it if it comes to that. It might be helpful in bringing up.
Did you ever remember quite clearly that we're meeting at 6 and that's 7?
I
thought it was 7. I thought it was 9. Show up at 6. I thought it was 7 also, because I was like, oh, it's just like meeting at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, but it's 7 o'clock on Monday. Similar to
We don't have minutes for the GA.
Oh, yeah. Well, if we all go out together, we can ask someone outside.
Hey, I'm done. Wait, I was told it was 7 outside.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock then. GA is at 7.
Guys, wait, thank you for being on.
Yeah, at 6 o'clock tonight in Broome Plaza, there's a vigil for an undergraduate student that was tragically killed in a car accident. It's scheduled from 6 to 8.
So I don't think we'd want to, well, we can meet there and move somewhere else or
Yeah,
something.
thank you for telling me.
We'll put a sign in somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can move.
We can move it to the road tree or whatever.
The Margaret tree.
So should we reconvene with our people outside and collectively decide what we're gonna do about the GA?
Yes.
Feelers?
Oh,
All right, group hug.
Wait. And then before group hug, we can decide we're gonna do the chairs. It's
Yeah,
like,
she
we
can
have
do
all
that.
of here, but like, it's just like, we gotta be respectful of the
Is there a
space, too.
facilities person here? We can ask like what would be best for the chairs?
For sure.
Yeah, we have people coming in at
Okay, so you could also rearrange that.
Group hug, guys.
Great. Love you guys.
This is what democracy looks like!
Tell me what democracy looks like!
This is what democracy looks like!
Tell me what democracy looks like!
This is what democracy looks like!
Tell me what democracy looks like!
This is what democracy looks like!
Whose university?
Our university!
Whose university?
Our university!
Let's not forget